All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Legal Tech Week. Today is May 27th, 2022, the start of a long weekend here in the United States. And hope everybody's got fun plans for that. This is the program in which we talk about the top stories of the week in legal tech and legal innovation. I'm Bob Ambrogi. I do the blog Law Sites and have the podcast Law Next, and also now the Legal Tech Directory, the Law Next Legal Tech Directory. And we have a special guest joining us today, so I'll let him introduce himself first, and then we'll go around and introduce the other ones. Greg, welcome.
Oh, am I the special guest? Okay,
You're
good,
the
good,
special guest, yeah.
great. Well, I'm Greg Lambert. I am the Chief Knowledge Services Officer at Jackson Walker, who came in this week at the AmLaw ranking of 109. So we are moving ever closer to falling into the AmLaw 100 and all the problems that will cause. But I also do the blog, Three Geeks in a Law blog, and the podcast, The Geek in Review, with my co-host, Marlene Gaybauer.
And you are my second favorite podcaster.
Yes, as are you,
Joe.
Bob. As are you.
Not a special guest, I guess, but a semi-regular these days. Once upon a time regular, Caroline Hill.
Yes, hi, it's great to be here. Thank you. Caroline Hill, I'm editor-in-chief of Legal IT Insider, based in the UK, but we write about legal tech across the globe. Nice to see everyone.
And then some of the usual suspects here. Victor, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Lee. I am Assistant Managing Editor for the ABA Journal, handling business of law and technology.
And Steve.
Hi, everyone. Steve Embry. I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads and am also chair-elect of the ABA Law Practice Division.
And last but not least, a microphone impaired Joe Patrice.
Yeah, no, microphone is having some issues, but hopefully people can hear me. I'm Joe Patrice. I'm the editor at Above the Law. I have a podcast, Thinking Like a Lawyer, and yeah, that's about all. I'm continuing to fight the good fight against the foxes who are destroying my house. So,
yeah. Well, this was obviously a very tragic week in terms of the news and in the big world. In the legal tech world, this was a week in which a number of women in legal tech were honored, no less among them our own Caroline Hill. Congratulations, Caroline. The Legal Technology Resource Center had a day-long Women in Legal Tech Summit, I guess, this week. And you were one of the women in legal tech honored at that program. How did it take so long? You should have been like in the first class, whenever that was.
I was so shocked, Bob. I was so shocked. And I think Greg was listening in for some of it, maybe all of it. I shared when we had to give a 5-minute thank you talk. And the first thing I said is it was a bit of a confession, which was that you and I both get sent a lot of these kind of awards lists. And anyway, I saw my name on it and I said on LinkedIn, oh, thank you so much. And it's such an honor. And then at 3 a.m. I woke up going, what if they just tagged me on it to write about it? And I've said, thank you. And they're just going, oh my God, that's a little bit embarrassing. Oh, but no, it was great. And it was wonderful. I'll actually post a link to who the honorees are. But it's a really great group.
Well, we've got time if you want to do your acceptance speech all over again.
Well, do you know what was interesting and kind of shows how far? I mean, it was a great celebration of what women are doing, right? So the women did some awesome stuff. I mean, some of the women on there really so impressive. So, a lot of people working with the universities as well as within the corporate world. But what was really interesting with the talks that people were giving, it's really obvious that people were talking about how to be a woman in tech, right? Like, and the challenges that people face and how to sort of overcome those, which was quite interesting, because I don't know that you'd get many sort of male summits where they talk about being a man, and you know what I mean? So I just felt like it was a great celebration. It was wonderful. And I think, it's just interesting. It kind of also made me feel how far we have to come. There's a lot of women talking about, one of the speakers who I was really impressed by, who's in my segment, was called Mary. Where is she? Oh, she was just one of the speakers. Sorry. I don't have her name here, but she was talking about being a paid for speaker, for example, and not being apologetic about.
Mary Vandenack.
Pardon? Yeah.
Was it Mary Vandenack? Yeah.
She was great. Did you see her? Did you see that bit?
I did not see any of it, but I think Greg was there. Yeah.
And I was trying to embarrass everyone who didn't show up, because there was, at one point, I think there was 2 male colleagues that had shown up for the conference or for the summit. And so I was trying to embarrass some people to get on there. And I think it did. And that really wasn't quite fair, because I think there was a little timing issue where it was sometimes at one point the invite got an hour. There was an hour off on the invite. So we'll just say that someone.
Quite long though, wasn't it? It was quite a few hours, but it was noticeable that you were one of 2 then. That was and thank you to people saying congratulations. I appreciate it. But yeah, so Mary was talking about don't apologize, things which really, it's just, it's, being the only woman, I don't want to bang on about it for too long, but you don't have that conversation if you're a man about apologizing for charging a fee. If you give a speech, you just charge, right? But I found her talk quite powerful, in that she was saying, you don't apologize. This is what you do. You make it
Wait a minute, men
clear.
charge for giving speeches?
Pardon? Yeah.
I said, wait a minute, men charge for giving speeches? I did not know that.
This is what I took away from it. I'm like, right, I'm going to put a menu price list on the website.
No wonder I never make any money. God, who knew?
Okay, I'm going to get her to come on here, and she can talk to all of us.
Yeah. And Mary's great. I was following the Twitter stream a little bit of it. I couldn't make the conference, but people were tweeting out a lot during her talk and other parts of the program.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
So it was a real. I mean, Greg? I put you on the spot, but did you have did you enjoy anything in particular, or did you manage to stand for the whole thing? It was quite long.
I stayed pretty much for the whole thing. There was a couple times where I had to step out, but yeah, I thought, well, what was really interesting was just the there is a ton of women in legal tech, and there has been for years, and for there to have to be a separate event to really recognize that just kind of shows, just how far behind the curve we are from where we should be. And so it's, and it's been one of the things that, with having a woman as in legal tech as a co-host, and one that was also an honoree there, it's she's I think she nailed it in saying that, she was kind of pissed that there weren't more, articles, more people being promoted, and more people, being recognized in this, and it takes something kind of outside the norm to celebrate that. So, but it was the speaker. I'm hoping that, I know it was recorded, but I don't know how, if people are going to be able to watch it. But it was the talks were fantastic.
I'll share as soon as we get the recording. I'll share it, and I'm sure all of us will. I made the point that it still is, in terms of promoting women and the visibility, that's still much harder to get women to speak. So I do a podcast as well, as you know, and it's still much harder to get women to speak up. And I'm saying, we really need more women to stand up and be role models, for the next generation. We really need more women to, I don't think women prioritize promoting themselves enough, quite frankly. I think that was my message. That was, if anyone could take anything away from what I said, I hope that would be it. Encourage the people around them to speak up a bit more.
It's, I think it was a very good celebration, and I'm sorry I couldn't sit in on it, but it strikes me as maybe coincidental or ironic that the ABA Commission on Diversity and Inclusion released their annual survey maybe Monday or Tuesday. And once again, the numbers were abysmal from a diversity standpoint, from a women's standpoint. And, you know, you read these year after year after year, and you think, why can't we make some progress with, and law? This was centered on law firms, not private companies or in-house legal departments. But I mean, the numbers were just, I mean, it's a white male bastion of white male dominance. It hasn't changed in all the years that I've been looking at it. And so, you know, not to put a damper on the celebration, but it just struck me as kind of, you know, not purposely unusual timing, but a sad coincidence that we have a wonderful celebration, and then we get smacked with reality right after that.
Yeah, we've talked several times on this show about Kristen Sandé's a couple of times she's done a survey of women and people of color among legal tech founders, and I mean the last time she did it, a year ago, 2 years ago now, was it? I mean, it was still pretty dismal, but you know, I think the great thing about this event is that it does shine a spotlight on some people that might not be otherwise recognized or as well known. At the same time, I do feel like we are, you know, baby steps, but we are making progress, especially among women in legal tech. I mean, you know, Latera now has a woman as a CEO. I mean, we're seeing, you know, any number of companies that have their top women as their top executives. As a matter of fact, Latera now, what is it like? The majority of their C-suite is women at Latera. You know, companies like Paradigm in the practice management space, or other places where women are leading the companies. So feels like there's some progress, but
I think with legal metrics, which we're all familiar with, I think that kind of initiative is going to help, you know, really getting the clients to put law firms on the spot and actually have the mechanism in order to do that, without having to, you know, so if you're not familiar, and I think it was say 10th of May I wrote about Elevate partnering with legal metrics, which I think they're going to start pushing it out to their corporate. So this is, you know, that you're able to measure diversity across a number of different metrics, and I think things like that are going to start hopefully meaning that they can't hide.
And that was actually,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was just going to quickly say that was something that was talked about at Clock too, that these folks who now have power over kind of monitoring the day-by-day billing of the outside firms are sitting around going, well, wait a minute, we can utilize this technology to put us in a position to benchmark and do some diversity efforts. So
yeah, I've said for a long time until
everyone. Caroline, your chat, you may want to put it to everyone if you want to share it with everyone. You got to just to host and panelists.
Oh, sorry. I've been sharing everything. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Steve. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, that's okay. I was just going to, as I've said before, I mean, I think the part of the solution has to come from the clients who say, you know, we have to have our matters staffed appropriately with women and people of color, or you don't get the work. And until that happens, you know, it's not sure how much progress we see. One of the telling statistics in the ABA report was women and people of color in leadership positions in law firms, and maybe more importantly, the number of women and people of color in the top 10% pay range of equity partners is almost non-existent. And I mean, you know, it's no secret that most of the power in the law firm comes from people that are highest paid, right? You don't get to be highest paid unless you got a lot of business. You got a lot of business, and you have a pretty good ability to lead the firm. So
one thing I worry about on metrics though is whether or not the fiasco that happened at Coca-Cola, it had a chilling effect on that, because we've finally had somebody that kind of stepped up, put it up in everybody's face, made, drew a line in the sand, and then was basically fired. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was not a precedent.
Didn't
that's
help.
going to have it didn't help. Greg, again, I know you sat in on some of it. Any other takeaways from you on the summit or some of the topics discussed there?
I think a lot of it was just more kind of along the line what Caroline was saying, was that I think everyone was there to support each other, to tell. There was a lot of good storytelling, of proselytizing of how they've gotten in, how they've gotten mentored, how they're now mentoring, and so it was just I thought it was very good personal stories. I don't know that there was necessarily anything that was saying, here's the direction of legal tech for women, but it was more of a, don't pull the ladder up after you, but bring somebody else along with you.
Yeah. Well, speaking of women in legal tech, Greg, you had one on your podcast this week, along with a man of legal tech. But you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll kind of back up because we've had a couple of episodes over the past few weeks that brought in members of the new-ish Justice Technology Association, which we hear we've heard of fintech, we've heard of legal tech, now there's justice tech, which are those products which are actually designed to kind of help that magic number of like 80% of all litigation typically that comes before the court has at least one party that's not represented by an attorney, and that the Justice Tech Association, or JTA, was established to kind of pull together a lot of these organizations that are creating access to justice technology or process to help kind of cut into that 80% number. And we had a couple of weeks ago, we had Yusuf Kassem from easyexpunctions.com was on to talk about how he's setting up, helping people with criminal records get those expunged automatically if they qualify. Again, I'm still kind of a big believer that I think the courts should be doing this. If there's if that's someone's eligible to get their records expunged, that they really shouldn't go to a third party to try and do that. But it's it's a marketplace solution to a problem that the court. So I think there's a few, Utah, Michigan, some other ones that have some automated expunctions. But we also talked with Maya Markovich, who's the executive director there at JTA, who was at Denton's Next Law Labs for a long time. So we had her, and then this week we had really interesting concept with Sonia Ebron and Ed Walters. Sonia is the CEO of Courtroom 5, which is really interesting in helping people navigate, not necessarily giving them legal advice on how to bring arguments, but just the process of handling the litigation. And as she said, she went big. So it was things like, I'm being kicked out of my house. I'm being sued on a number of large issues, not just traffic tickets, sort of thing. And what's really cool is that Sonia's not a lawyer at all, no legal training at all. She just had a really bad experience. She's a professor of engineering in North Carolina. And
funny how many legal tech companies start from bad experiences with lawyers.
That's all. Yeah. Or lawyers who've had bad experiences.
Yeah.
And so, so she and Ed are working together to kind of expand what they're doing there at Courtroom 5 to also allow for a lot of the data that Fastcase has with Ed Walters, and really do this kind of collaboration of helping, again, with the overall idea of chipping away at this 80% of people showing up without representation and really not getting any help other than, hey, here's some forms to fill out, right? And Sonia points out that a lot of times those forms can do more damage than good, because sometimes it actually exposes more information than the litigant really needs to put out there to the court or to the other side. So really, really cool thing. The JTA itself also has people like Erin Levine from Hello Divorce that's going on. Also another Women in Legal Tech honoree, and then Camila Lopez from People Clerk is on there as well. So it's amazing stuff that's going on. Just happens to be run by mostly women.
Fantastic. Yeah, the whole justice tech area is booming right now, I guess, in a lot of ways. I mean, it's still, not booming in the way that, I don't know, contract management software is or e-discovery is, because they're not dumping a lot of money into it. But there's some really interesting, innovative projects and programs and products coming out of that space. I guess I mentioned Kristen Sunday before. Her company Paladin is kind of one of them. I mean, I think they talk about themselves as a justice tech company, and that's really what they're focused on. So pretty cool. Well, since you talked about filling out forms, maybe I'll talk about my story this week because it segues, and I'm always a sucker for a good segue. But there was a ruling this week out of a federal district judge in New York, which basically held that non-lawyers cannot be prevented from giving legal advice to low-income individuals in bankruptcy cases. And really, it's talking about filling out forms is what they were doing. Because they're protected by the First Amendment, and I thought that was a really, really fascinating decision. This was a case in which Upsolve, which is a bankruptcy technology and services company, has started this program to train non-lawyers to assist low-income individuals in filling out these forms in bankruptcy and debt matters, before launching this program that they had trained these people for, they decided to go to court, and they were anticipating that the New York Attorney General would bring an action against them for unauthorized practice of law. So rather than let that happen, they decided to go on the offensive, I guess that would be, and file a lawsuit for injunctive relief. And this week, the judge entered a preliminary injunction. So we know that's there's more to come in this case, a lot more to come in this case, including a decision on the merits at some point, and certainly any number of appeals. But this argument that the First Amendment protects these non-lawyers' ability to provide legal advice as speech was really fascinating. It's an interesting decision to read. Exactly what the precedential effect of that will end up being. The judge said, several times in the opinion that he meant it to be a very narrowly tailored opinion, specific to the issues presented in this case, and yet when you read the opinion, it's hard to see how it wouldn't apply equally to any number of situations in which non-lawyers can provide legal assistance to individuals. So that is one to watch.
Presumably, the Bar Association have got something to say about this, right? Or the regular, presumably, does this effectively undermine? Obviously, with professions, you have your regulator, and the ones who understand how this should be delivered, and the authorities. Like, what effect does that have on the authority of the regulator?
Well,
Sorry.
yeah. You want to say something on that, Victor?
Well, I think in New York, it's I mean, it like the reason why they sued the attorney general was because it's the attorney general that would actually be the one enforcing the rules. It wouldn't necessarily be a bar association thing. I mean, I'm sure they could still get like in trouble with the bar association, but as far as the actual like laws, it was the attorney general that was the one enforcing us. That's why they sued the attorney general for the injunction and whatnot. I thought it was interesting just because we've been following this case pretty closely, and I apologize beforehand. My internet's been consists of like my internet consists of like hamsters running on a wheel, like I guess, because today I've been this program's actually frozen like 4 times for me already. So if I freeze during the middle of this, I apologize. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it was an interesting argument, the First Amendment thing. I never really thought that would work. Because I mean, the argument has always been that this is a consumer affairs. This is a consumer protection issue. It's protecting the public from unqualified people pretending to practice law and whatnot. I mean, that was always the original thrust of the law, but then also the big argument against a lot of these providers. So I thought it was interesting that A, this argument worked, and B, I remember thinking at the time when they sued, I thought it was a bold move, but it was like a kind of like a, well, it's a bold strategy. Let's see how that works out, kind of thing. But it looks like it did. So I kudos to them. But there's definitely a lot more that has to be done as far as where this goes. The New York bar, I mean, just my understanding is that like the New York bar tends to be very conservative, but there are some elements within the bar association that are progressive, and like they have been like looking at licensing non-professionals in certain areas. They are examining some of that stuff. So it's interesting because you sort of have like a tug of war kind of going on between the two, between the different sides. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, some of you may remember as I recall, it was the freedom of speech argument that opened the doors for lawyer advertising back in the day. And more recently, it's free speech. There have been free speech arguments made by members of bar associations objecting to how bar associations were spending some of their dues money. But I think most of those have sort of run out of gas, if you will. But it is interesting how the freedom of speech concept sort of runs through a lot of these things. And I thought that was a very good opinion, very interesting. And it also strikes me that every time a court gets ready to drop a nuclear bomb on precedent, they say, well, this is really limited. I think we heard that recently someplace.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I'm just trying to think about how the regulation of the unauthorized practice of law actually works, because the bar authorities, the bar regulatory authorities, regulate the practice of law, and so they can discipline lawyers when lawyers do something wrong and set standards for lawyers. But I think in some states they don't necessarily have jurisdiction over the unlicensed practice of law, and that becomes a law enforcement issue or something like that. Is that right or not? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, when I was in the
think
Bronx,
there he went.
The Embster died.
What I was going to say, I don't know about other places, but in the state that I'm in, there's actually a statutory prohibition. So you're right, it does become a law enforcement kind of.
Sorry, yeah, it looked like. But yeah, I was going to say, when I was at the DA's office, we prosecuted people for unauthorized practice of law, but that was like your con man, like pretending to be a lawyer and screwing people over, kind of thing. So I mean, right. I don't know what the boundary is, like what the. It might just depend on the fact pattern itself, but there is a criminal statute for it.
Where were you in Illinois when were you prosecuting
in New York?
In New York, oh yeah. Okay.
So in the UK, we've got different. Yeah. So we've got obviously the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and then we've got the institute that regulates legal executives, who are non-lawyers, but they've got certain abilities to practice. That it's all anybody who can provide legal services will be regulated to a certain extent by a legal regulator, whether that be whatever. But it seems to me quite strange that there would been no regulation around this. We're like, oh well, you just don't count. You're not one of us. So just go do your thing.
Well, I mean, this has actually been one of the arguments in some states that have talked about licensing paraprofessionals to deliver legal services, is that they want that licensing authority over the paraprofessionals that they don't have now, and therefore the enforcement and disciplinary authority and the ability to set rules of conduct and rules around, liability insurance and that sort of thing. So I think that's part of what's been driving that. And that was in some way, what some people have said was the downfall of the limited license legal technology program in Washington State, because it was so heavily overregulated that it became a bureaucratic nightmare and cost more than it was worth continuing to run. All right. Victor, speaking about paraprofessionals and non-lawyer paraprofessionals, that happens to fit right in with what you're going to talk about this week. If you better feed the hamster first, because this could be.
Yeah, it looks like they're running out of steam. I'll keep it quick just because I don't know when I'm gonna get cut off. But yeah, California, like there was their bar association has been looking at reforms for a while, and they started off kind of with these grandiose reforms, like very wide ranging, looking at everything, all possibilities, non-lawyer ownership, licensing, paralegals and paraprofessionals and whatnot. And obviously, like the scope has been shrinking and shrinking over the last year as more lawyers object to the reforms, the proposed reforms, I guess, because they haven't gone into effect. And so the one that came out this week is that there's a paraprofessional program working group decided to kind of limit the scope of their proposed reforms. So there would be no chance for paraprofessionals to own stakes in law firms. There would be like a regulatory framework to kind of make sure they understand certain, like make sure they're trained and they disclose things, and they're trained in collateral consequences for for the areas of the law that they're licensed in, and things like that. So it kind of runs similar to like what we've been talking about, sort of like ultimately at the end of the day, it's like you had these big ideas, but then like people push back, and then now you end up with a program that could be similar to the Washington program. I mean, the devil will be in the details, but it looks like it's kind of headed that way.
Yeah, it's getting to be hard to keep up with what's happening or not happening in California, but it's amazing how much sway how conservative the lawyer, how much sway lawyers have had over this issue in California, and how conservative they've been in the positions that they've been taking. I think your article said something about among the lawyers who came out on this, the vast majority of them were opposed to the paraprofessionals having any kind of an ownership in this. And I mean, I think
it was like 90%, I think.
Yeah. I mean, in the general public, probably certainly would never even think about the issue for the most part, but would probably have no objection whatsoever to this. They're just they're not sort of participating in this process enough. So the entrenched lawyers get to be the squeaky wheels here, and then the bar responds to that, and little progress gets made.
I thought Cat Moon from Vanderbilt had a good quote on this on Twitter months ago, and I wish I had captured it. So I've just been paraphrasing it for weeks since. But that is, the legal industry, she said, it's perfectly fine for us to be a self-regulated industry. But with that power, you also have to understand if there are things that you are just unable or unwilling to do, you've got to step back and allow someone else to fill that need. You can't just say, we're not going to do it, we can't do it, but we're not going to let anybody else do it either. And I think, this is a prime example of 90% of the members of the California bar coming out against this, but probably none of them are willing to also step in and fill that need. So, you can't really have it both ways, so that, you end up not really, you're trying to protect yourself and not the clients or the citizens.
Can't protect a monopoly if you're not going to deliver the services.
They rode back on the sandbox in California, didn't they? Is that still
Yeah.
the case? They sort of were exploring sort of sandbox in terms of non-ownership, but last I heard, they rode back on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think, part of what you said, Greg, is I think what made both Utah and Arizona interesting is that the real impetus for the changes in those states came not so much from the bar, but from the judiciary. And I think the judiciary looks at the issue from a different perspective because they see the impact that the access to justice crisis is having on their courts. And they're seeing the 80 or 90% of people coming into cases without a lawyer, and they see how that slows down the wheels of justice and the impact it has on their clerks and everything else. And so I think part of the reason, it's always amazed me that some of the strongest drivers for liberalization of rules around practice have come from chief justices of Supreme Courts and justices of Supreme Courts in the state level.
I think as Bill Henderson's been promoting this for a long time, and the fact that it's in a lot of states, it is the state Supreme Court that sets the rules, and they may take advice from the bar association and delegate some of that power, but the power is within the Supreme Court justices, and most of them don't see themselves as regulators. They see themselves as justices. And he's been really pushing to say, no, look, you've got at least two jobs here. And one of them is to, regulate the way legal services are provided within your state, and, step up and do that.
Yeah. All right. So let's go on to Steve. What do you got?
Yeah, I came across an interesting study. Actually, artificial lawyer and Richard Tromaines came across it first, and he wrote a piece on it. And since I have no original ideas of my own, I just thought I'd write my own. But this was a survey done by Contract Works of about 350 people in in-house legal departments, both in the United States and the UK. And when I first saw this statistic, even when I wrote the post about it, I thought, oh my God. But the thing that jumped out was a report that 77% of the people surveyed said that they had experienced a failure in a implementation of a legal technology project. And when I first saw that, I thought, wow, that's an incredible percentage. But when you dig down in the report, 34% of the people said that happened to them one time, and 43% of the people said it happened to them more than once. Now, I'll have to say, in reflecting on my own personal use of technology, I have probably had more than one failed legal technology implementation project. I've certainly had more than one tech implementation project. I've got one sitting across the room right now with some security systems, but it's still an interesting, kind of an interesting statistic when they drill down into the reasons that people perceive that these failures happen. The main reason, according to the people that responded, was it simply took too long to implement the technology project. The technology was too complicated, was another leading cause identified, and it wasn't the right fit. And that's fairly common. I think we've all sort of seen that, where the IT department will go out and buy a piece of legal technology without really talking to the lawyer, legal professional users of that technology. And it doesn't fit very well because for obvious reasons. Now, a lot of times the people in the legal department don't take the time to analyze and look at it, and I appreciate that. But so there were some interesting pieces to the survey. I'm not sure the 77% number, and reflecting back on it now, I'm not sure how much you can draw from that. But the fact that the reasons that people identified, I think that's pretty valid to look at, and I think it's from a legal technology standpoint, the need to make technology that's not terribly complicated, that's intuitive, that people can pick up on really, really quick is certainly paramount. And there are a number of products out there that we all know that examples on both sides of that, where they're too complicated, people have to click too many times, and on the other side of it, there's legal technology out there that just, as they used to say about Apple, it just works. Now they say it's just work. But so anyway, that was the one I picked up, and I apologize to Richard for copying his lead.
I think when if I could jump in on that, so I think when you look at, I've got two thoughts. I think for that, one of my thoughts was, and I think maybe this doesn't apply to the type of failures, which were just failures, but we're always being told don't be afraid of failure, right? Technology is all about failure and trying new things. And I've been speaking this week to a lot of firms where on the law firms where they're creating innovation teams that are completely separate from IT because they do because they do think failure is okay. But no, that was one thought. And then the other one was that you've seen I've written, all of us have probably written about the CLM space and all the investment. And speaking to people who advise in-house teams, they're kind of terrified that they're going to be just jumping on technology for the, feeling like they ought to, and not really evaluating what it is, what it does, is it right for them? There's an awful lot of pressure. And they're sort of seeing all of the data around, there's a load of data now around, this really drives efficiency. And you need a lot of analytics, right? You need to get yourself right into some analytics, and that's going to make everything go really well. and they, I was speaking to someone at a law firm who advises, what's really great is there's wider roles within law firms advising in-house teams on the type of technology they should be looking at. Obviously, consultants do that too. But I think that it's really important with the current excitement over certain types of technology not to get caught up in this sort of wave, just buy something thinking, God, this is definitely going to help.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that came out from the study that was particularly with in-house departments, they often have technology imposed upon them that might work well for the accounting group or the manufacturing group, but the legal group has, they do have more particular needs, and so to try to make that fit sometimes leads to clunky technology for the needs that you actually have.
Yeah, but I think as the comments some of the comments in the chat have made clear, I mean, there's so many reasons for a failure of a tech implementation, and it may be the tech, it may be something about the legal department. I mean, it may be a lack of training. It may be, as somebody pointed out, as simple as the account verification email going into the spam folder. And
that's a fair point. On the other side of the equation, I think this is maybe more true when you get into the law firm space where you've got lawyers that are billing hours as a business model, but often the legal tech providers, they don't grasp the fact that if it takes a long time to train you on a piece of technology, lawyers aren't going to do it. They just aren't. If they're billing by the hour, that's a non-billable hour, and it better work, and it better work quick, and it better be intuitive. And if it's not, then they get frustrated really quick. And that's a bad thing. A pox on the lawyers for that, but that's just reality. And again, there are a lot of products out there that are just great. I mean, you just turn them on and you know how to, not to compliment anyone in particular, but the lit software products for trial lawyers, it's work. You don't even need to read the instructions hardly. You just turn it on, it example. Oh yeah, move this here and drag that there, and we're ready to go, kind of thing. So it's, it's possible to do that.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, that survey was done by ContractWorks, which is owned by Onit, which happens to be the subject about which Joe Patrice wrote this week.
Your segues.
I was impressed.
Wow.
I saw that one. Yeah, I saw that one coming too, and I was like, "Oh, good." Yeah. So for me, I was just having just a general, no special reason, just kind of catch up call with Onit this week, and something was said that got me thinking. And maybe everybody else has already had this revelation. I'm late to this party, but a trend over the last several years, I feel, has been these companies really aiming for end-to-end everything, making acquisitions so we can provide you our patented, this is how you do legal work from one side of the ledger to the other. And it is kind of almost like a brand identity, almost like this is I won't name anybody in particular, the X way of doing it. This is our offerings of how to go through that. And one thing that, while talking to them, that I hadn't really thought through is they've reorganized the business a little bit into business units, and they have separate people driving the strategy for providing, this is what end-to-end looks like when you're a Fortune 100 company, and this is what end-to-end looks like when you're a small legal department that has a solo GC running a quick sale by a provider on the internet. And I hadn't really thought through that because there's been so much time and attention spent to these vendors hoovering up other companies to build their patented system. And the idea that maybe you need multiple, maybe it's horizontal is the direction you need to start going, and have multiple different versions of your patented system to fit different companies, which, yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way. But when they said that, it just kind of clicked that maybe that's something that we're losing, was everybody's trying to build their way,
Could they not, within that one system, if you're so take like within the sort of the normal world, within the mainstream world, with the kind of
Right.
technology that we all use, right? So if I'm a solo person, I don't know, I can't think of a really good example, but a lot of the cloud-based applications that we use, I might be small or I might be big, right? And I can use that, and I can extract from it what I need, and I'm just wondering, because I think it's really interesting. Your article really provoked some thoughts, because I was speaking to a cyber expert who was talking about within the cyberspace, firms all thinking that they have to do the same thing, right? They all need the same technology, and he was going, it's total bollocks, right? He was saying, they need to work out what their risk factor is, and they need to buy technology according to that. They don't just look at, I need that. This needs to be much more thoughtful. So I kind of was really interested in your, I think one of the things I thought was, it becomes quite expensive to maintain perhaps different systems, and for me, I wondered if you could just create one platform, but surely they could create their own workflow within it, or create, I don't know,
right,
like kind of maintain lots of different systems.
Yeah, like kind of a plug and play, where you like, oh, well, this is our patented system, but for certain people we'll just swap this one solution along the line. And I think that is something that a lot of people are offering. What I thought was interesting about the way they're talking about it is there might be something that they share, that both sides share, and there might not be, but they just have different officers in charge of thinking through, hey, what do we need to best reach these people? And it may be some of the same things the other hand is working on, and it may not be. The workflow itself may be different, and it's not something that just is in certain parts of the workflow. It may not be a plug and play. There may just need to be a whole different system. And just having two different people rather than somebody trying to wear both hats, I thought was interesting, because that, I'd never thought of it that way. I had very much thought of it like you, like either everybody has the same thing or it tweaks here and there. Like the billing part might be slightly different. But yeah, this was an idea to have it be completely different.
You're right, because when you think about when you had all of the different solutions, like say, for example, thinking about Thomson Reuters with their case management, and you'll have a very strong user group, which is meeting constantly and feeding constantly into that, right? Like, and so, yeah, I suppose you need to make sure with all of these things being plugged together that you're very much in touch with your user base, and you're very much sort of, you know, responding to, because their needs are going to be evolving, and they're going to need to give you, if it's good, the development is good, they're going to need to be giving you constant feedback. So yeah, no, it's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest with you. I think there's so much focus on platformization or aggregation, depending on what it is that they're actually doing, but it's interesting.
I mean, there's a little bit of a, I mean, I have, you know, high regard for Onit and for everything Eric Elfman company have built there over the years, but I have to say there's probably a little bit of an opportunistic angle to it as well, right? I mean, they were kind of going after the high-end enterprise market, and then they're looking around and saying, well, wait a minute, there's this whole big middle enterprise market, or whatever you want to call that, you know, middle corporate market, and we don't have a product for them, so maybe we should go out and acquire a couple of products that serve that market. And then we've expanded our user base a whole lot beyond what we had before. And we've got a lot of money in our pockets right now to do that. So why not?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely part of it. Just the question of, is it just the philosophy question of, do you acquire some companies for that market and then rip out two pieces of what you currently have and plug those in, or do you, I'm covering up the camera because I'm talking with my hands, or do you just have, you know, totally separate people in different rooms working on different whiteboards, thinking through a different way that is closer to what the user base wants? I thought it was an interesting philosophical question of, like, how do you go out and get that new market? Because you can get it multiple ways. You could adapt what you have for it, or you can kind of start from scratch and have a different team thinking about what those people need. It was something that clicked with me that I'd never thought of, and it wasn't even. That's why I love these kind of conversations with companies where I have no agenda, because if there had been an agenda, we'd have been talking about some like recent purchase or something, and it would have gotten lost. But just randomly chatting long enough, they said something and it triggered with me. I was like, wait a minute. So what you're saying is, and yeah.
Was this the bar clock?
All right.
Was there ever not a bar at Clock? That's what I want to know.
I'm just
there were some bars at Clock. Yeah,
I'm shocked.
I've had very little alcohol access for this show, so that's why I've been less entertaining. I'm sorry, everybody. I feel like I've let everyone down.
Yeah, usually Joe has at least one hand occupied, right, so he can't cover up the...
That's right. Yeah, I was just going to say that.
You're drinking a green drink, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Clock, we got starting to come into some other summer conference season coming up. We've got actually did a quick little post this week on AALL, which I tell people is, you know, it's like the other legal tech conference. A lot of people don't think of it as a legal tech conference, but I think it's a great. I love going to that conference, and I love it for the legal tech. I mean, it's obviously more, you know, information and research focused legal tech, but not entirely. And so much of that, even that area, you know, in terms of analytics and various data aspects and everything else are great. So that's coming up in July in Denver. So we'll see you all at that one.
Yeah,
I
will be there.
Sweet.
Got a little bit of the feel of tech show. Actually, it's a little more laid back and collegial, and more ability to talk with people where you don't feel like you're being sold on something that you may or may not want. So it's one of my favorite conferences too. Hopefully, I will be there.
Joe, are you going to that? We'll get a suite this time.
Joe's brought up the ILTA passes, which I look forward to this conversation each year. But
I sent in for ILTA passes, and I've not heard anything one way or the other back. So we'll stay tuned on that. We are not going to be able to get a suite at this point because through fault of not mine, apparently all of the suites were already booked before my people started booking suites. So we don't have one. That was annoying, but we'll work on something if we, hopefully I'll have a pass and maybe we won't need it, but we'll see.
All right. Anything else anybody wants to highlight or bring up for the good of the order before we take
Well,
off for?
I'd like to just quickly throw a bomb out there with all the layoffs that are coming in fintech. Is that is that an omen for legal tech? So I don't know how these tend to tag, one to the other, but there's a lot of negativity going on in the fintech industry right now. And I will also say there was $1 billion already invested into CLM products this year already, which apparently is like twice what it was on average or for this time last year. I think I could be wrong. I'm going to say it. I think we got a bubble going on there.
That was my story.
There we go.
Oh, did you have a story that we didn't get to, Caroline? I thought we were just talking about.
No. I mean, as in,
I thought we were
sorry,
talking
Bob.
about your.
No. I meant as in I wrote. We get data from Legal Complex, and I posted about CLM in this year so far. Raymond from Legal Complex, his data shows that there's been over $1 billion, well over $1 billion dollars worth of investment in CLM, which is just nuts.
Well, Greg, thanks for bumming us all out as we're about to go into the long holiday weekend. I'm going to be depressed all weekend.
My pleasure, Bob. My pleasure. Oh, and I did put a link in. Bob has a great podcast interview with Stephen Poore from Seyfarth, and so that's another good thing to listen to if you're looking for something over this long weekend to numb your brain.
That was fun. The funny thing is I never listen. I hate to listen to my own podcast, but I always got to go listen to that because I'm so rarely a guest. And I went to listen to it and I was looking at it and I saw that the guest just before me had been Ed Walters. So then I instead clicked on that, listened to his interview with Ed Walters, who was, as you know, Greg, he's always fun to listen to and always fun to talk to. So lots of good stuff on Stephen Poore's podcast. Well, everybody have a great weekend. Thanks a lot, Greg. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And to everybody else out there, hope you have a great weekend and happy birthday to your son, Caroline.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm really.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.